Liza Bournais, the Associate Editor of BookPage, at ALA in New Orleans talking to Sara Zarr. Sara's fourth book, How to Save a Life, comes out in October. Her first novel, Story of a Girl, was a National Book Award finalist, and her most recent novel, Once Was Lost, was praised in BookPage as part realistic fiction, part mystery, part religious story, and altogether one smart read. So I am so excited to meet her in person and talk to her here today about her new novel. So first, can you just tell me about your new book? What's it about?
Sure. I'm sorry. Sure. There are two narrators, Jill and Mandy, and Mandy is an 18-year-old who is pregnant, and Jill is the daughter of a woman who is adopting Mandy's baby in a open adoption without any real documents signed. So it's a kind of tenuous situation, and then the book kind of starts out when Mandy is moving in to live with Jill and her mother as they wait for the baby to come, and then drama ensues.
Jill is not very excited about the situation.
Jill is not excited about it. Her father has just died in the last year, and she thinks her mother is making a rash decision that she's going to regret, and she doesn't like Mandy, and she's been having a lot of problems with her mom, so it's not a great time for her.
Well, there's a dual narrative in this story. It's told from both Jill and Mandy's point of view. Was that difficult for you to balance the two stories and go back and forth? What was your process?
You know, when I first started out, I had this chapter that was written from Jill's point of view, and as I got to where I was going to start the next chapter, I realized that I wanted to be on the train with the girl who was arriving in Denver, and that's how it wasn't something I thought about that much ahead of time. It just kind of happened that way. And at first it was very difficult because Jill is much more like me, so I'd write one of her chapters and it would be like 2,000 words, it would go really fast. Then I'd get to Mandy and I'd just be sweating over it, and I'd look and it'd be like 600 words. But as I went through revisions, the balance worked out, and I really came to know Mandy in a different way than I had first envisioned her. And it was really a joy to write her parts because she's nothing like me. It was really interesting.
Well, I know you wrote on your blog that you just loved writing this book, and you had, I think you said you had more fun working on this book than you have before. Why was this novel different from your others?
I think there's a few reasons that the process was better for me. One is just I'm more experienced. Before I sold Story of a Girl, I had written 3 novels that were unpublished, and I was used to writing with no one really caring about what I was doing. Nothing was at stake. And then after my first book was published, as I was writing Sweethearts and then Once Was Lost, it was really hard for me to put out of my mind that, you know, my agent was going to be looking at it, and my editor was going to be looking at it, and marketing people were looking at it, and all of the stuff that comes with being a published writer. And I think with How to Save a Life, I'm now used to that, and I'm able to kind of set that aside while I work. Also, it's the least autobiographical of any books I've written. Although Jill as a character has a lot of me in her, the events of the book, it totally just came from a writing exercise. So I didn't have so much of my own stuff that I was working through. Maybe that was part of it too.
Okay. Well, I have also read on your blog that you don't feel like you ever chose YA, that it chose you. Why do you think that is? Why do you enjoy writing books directed about and directed toward this teen age group?
You know, I don't know. I've talked to writer friends about this, and we all kind of have our writing voice, and it just seems, my writing voice just seems to be 15, 16, 17. I have friends who write middle grade. Their kind of inner voice is just 10 or 11. A good friend of mine, Ann Bowen, who writes picture books, I forget how old, I probably shouldn't say anyway. She's a long way from 6. But she's just really in touch with the person she was at 6. She just really remembers her experiences of being 6. I really remember my experiences of being in high school. So it's not so much that like I relate to teens now, it's more being in touch with that 15 or 16-year-old that's still in me. I mean, I think most adults are still working out a lot of our adolescent issues, even as we're in our 30s and 40s.
Well, I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about your next project, because I was so excited to see your post on Good Letters about A House Like a Lotus, which is my favorite Madeleine book ever. And you said in the introduction to that post that you were kind of reading it in preparation for your next book or as research, and I wondered, what is the connection between Madeleine L'Engle and your next book?
Well, the book I'm working on right now is called The Lucy Variations, and it is about a teenage girl who was a promising concert pianist, and she kind of gave it all up. And at 16, she feels like her best years are behind her. And then this mentor figure comes into her life. And what I love about A House Like a Lotus is how it gets into the complexities of those first relationships that you have with adults that aren't your parents, how influential those are in both positive and negative ways, and how confusing they can be, but also how great they can be and help you see yourself through new eyes and see yourself as the adult you're going to become. So those are some of the things I'm working through. I've really just only gotten going on it, but I'm looking forward to exploring all that.
Okay, well, I know I and our readers too will look forward to that. Well, finally, we are at ALA right now, so I wondered if you could tell me a little bit about what libraries have meant to you, if you had a favorite library branch growing up, or a librarian who was really important to you, kind of just why they're valuable.
Well, I grew up in San Francisco, and my family didn't have money, so the idea of buying a book was not in our world at all, so virtually all my reading came from the library or books that people would give me. So my sister and I went every week to the branch. I want to say 9th Avenue in San Francisco. It might have been 6th Avenue. They had a great children's library there. And yeah, I mean, our house was just filled with library books all the time. And as an adult, that's still the case. I mean, I buy a lot of books, but I can't afford to buy all the books that I want to read now either. So there's always a pretty big stack of library books at our house. I like to just check out a dozen and then just read the first few pages and see what I'm going to like. I mean, it's a great way to discover new writers and discover new types of writing that I might not be sure that I like. I also like to write at the library, and yeah, my husband and I are both big fans of the libraries.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Sarah. And